start. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, but I have a special guest today. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, well, Dark Bleatings, I should say. I'm Kayleigh from Happy Goat Horror, and I'm happy to be here. I've
Yes.
been looking forward to this conversation, Eric.
Yeah. Well, we're here today. We're going to do a joint review. Have you got your copy ready to show off?
Yeah.
We're here to talk about Stephen King's You Like It Darker. I've got the American version.
I've got the UK version.
Yes, and you can argue in the comments about which has a better cover.
Yeah, I think it's yours.
See, and I as much as I like this one, I like yours. I was kind of like, why don't we have that cool cover?
I know. Well, so, I think the true Stephen King nuts collect them all, and I say nuts fondly, like not as an insult, because I've seen people on Instagram that buy every book cover on release day, and I think, well, I wish I had the funds to build such a collection. I just get one.
Exactly. I know people who collect comics who do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'll just pick my favorite cover, but I know people that need all the covers.
Yeah, I used to get the Walking Dead used to do a magazine. I think it stopped about halfway through the show's runtime, and it was a really cool magazine if you were, obsessed with The Walking Dead like me, because it had all like behind the scenes and all of that stuff. And every now and then they'd release an alternative, like comic booky looking cover, and I did get a few of them, but not the entire catalog.
I have a few special covers. I have the wall that I'm actually facing is covered in comic books.
Cool.
I have them in bags with a backing board, and then they're stuck to the wall. And quite a few of them were alternative covers that I just thought looked really cool. And I was like, all right, I'm going to put that up on the wall.
Yeah, just add. Yeah, that's a cool idea.
And I actually have a poster of a book cover behind me, Exorcist Falls by Jonathan Jaynes.
Oh, cool.
I would love to have more book cover posters.
Yeah, I really want those Adam Neville covers as posters.
Yeah.
And I think that you can. Well, I doubt that you can buy prints for the book covers separately, but I know that you can. The cover artist does have a website for prints and paintings and stuff, but he's expensive because he's good. So yeah. I have yet to start building my Sam Araya collection, but it's the stuff of nightmares.
Those covers are fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't put them in my bedroom. I wouldn't want to look at that as the last thing I see before I fall asleep. Any of his art.
I think I would. I wore I wore what I think is my most appropriate T-shirt for this discussion.
Oh, that's cool.
my little Cujo.
Little Cujo.
Which is normally a work T-shirt, but I pulled it out for this special. And for anyone who doesn't know, this is a short story collection, and it does have a Cujo tie-in story, a sequel.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's a spoiler.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's a spoiler, but should we? So we've been like really organized about how we're doing this, everyone. Do you want to just like sort of take it story by story?
We can do that. Yes.
I've got some notes.
You have your notes. I'm winging it as I always do.
They're just brief notes.
I don't believe in notes.
Yeah, my memory's bad. I won't remember otherwise.
That's why I have to look at the table of contents, and hopefully your notes will remind me of what some of these stories are. But the first one, I do recall what it is. Two Talented Bastards.
Yeah.
Is the first story. So what are how much are we going to, we're trying to avoid spoilers.
Yeah, we'll avoid spoilers.
How much are we going to talk about what the story's about?
We'll talk about it a little bit, but we're trying to avoid spoilers for everyone who hasn't read this yet. But I really liked this one because this is it's two guys, isn't it? Are they camping, fishing? They're in the wilderness,
hunting. Yeah,
hunting.
Well, it's. I was gonna say it's an author has died, and
That's
his
right. Yeah.
son has found some papers, and there were questions. There was a reporter. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at the beginning of it. A reporter that wants to talk to him because he sort of came out of obscurity to become this famous author, and his friend became this famous artist. And people want to know how and why. And the son, after the father dies, the son finds some papers where he reads about this hunting trip that the dad and his friend went on.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah. Oh,
that's
yeah, that's right. That's the framework of it. Yeah. Um, I really loved it because the characters were I don't want to say like old school Stephen King characters, but do you know what I mean? Like when like back in the first 20 years of his writing career, I still like his characters now, but these felt like they'd fit at home in like his 80s work or something to me.
sure.
Yeah. He's always great with characters though.
It was see, I don't know if this oh, I was gonna say something. I saw an article about this story yesterday
Yeah.
that compared it to an earlier work of his. I
Hmm.
guess that's all I'm gonna say, because if I say what the earlier work was, then it might spoil the story.
I know which one it yeah, I know which one it is, and I won't say either. But
But
yeah.
I have not read that, so I can't
Oh.
make that comparison. Um, I do have it somewhere. I think I can see it right over there. Um, yeah, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the framing device and the way he tells the story, the way everything unfolds.
Hmm.
I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's it's just like a good old weird story that you could I mean, it's kind of like definitive in what it actually is, so it doesn't like leave you wondering like what
Right,
happened. But it does open up like you could write like a whole bunch more stories. Like, well, there is the Stephen King multiverse anyway, so I feel like they're all
yeah.
connected anyway. But yeah, I feel like he could do a whole bunch of stories with this kind of like idea.
And it does, the way it's set up, it could have been one. There's a type of story that it seemed to be leaning towards,
Yeah,
but then it turns out, again, hopefully this doesn't spoil things, but it's not that. It's
yeah,
not what we expect it to be, I
yeah.
think.
You expect it to zig, and then it zags.
Exactly.
It zags a bit more.
I find I've said this before in my reviews of short story collections. I find it difficult to talk about them and avoid spoilers, because it's just you don't have that much to talk about in a little short story.
Yeah, that's I find it difficult to review short stories because I always try to avoid spoilers completely if I can, and it's so with a short it is way harder to do that than with a novel.
Yes,
Would, with the sorry, I don't know we're doing story by story, but I just have to say like I think that this collection is the best collection that he's written in years. Not that I've disliked other collections, but I just think that this is one of the stronger ones he's done.
I have not read, well, aside from If It Bleeds,
Yeah.
which would that be more of a four novella collection?
I guess, yeah, you'd put that in the same category as like Four Past Midnight or something, wouldn't you? Because they're longer.
Well, aside from that, I don't think I've read a short story collection since Skeleton Crew, Night Shift.
Oh, those are the first two, aren't they? Yeah.
I've read Skeleton Crew, Night Shift, different seasons. That might be it.
Okay. So
There's
there's
tons and tons of his short stories that I have not read.
yeah, oh, I moved my Stephen King bookcase. Now it's not there, it's down there now. But um there's Everything's Eventual, Just After Sunset, Bizarre Bad Dreams. Is there another one?
The
I
Full
might
Dark No Stars, is that what it's called?
Oh,
Isn't
Full
that
Dark No Stars. Um that is that one novellas? Hmm.
don't
Which
know.
one is all murder themed?
Oh.
That might be that. I think that's Full Dark No Stars. I think that that one has four stories in it as well, so like more novella length. Um,
Is is Bag of Bones short
No,
stories or
that's
is
a
that a novel?
novel.
Okay.
That's a novel. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well,
I have a huge missing chunk of
yeah,
Stephen King when I stopped reading him for the longest time.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, there's quite a lot to read with Stephen. It takes a while to get through all of his stuff, doesn't it? I had to like dedicate my whole, like, not an entire year, but I just read nothing but all of the unread Stephen King books until I finished them all one year recently. Well, anyone in the comments that's like read all of his collections, I'd love to know where other people would like rank this one in collections, because I think that I think Night Shift and Skeleton Crew are always going to be top collections.
Those are the classics.
Yeah, I think those are incredible books, but I would put this on third, I think, for his short story collections that aren't collections of novellas, because I guess I'd put those in a different category. But yeah, I thought that all of the stories were quite strong in this one. I don't think I read any where I thought, eh.
Well, I believe I said this to you, but for the viewers that haven't heard this, as I was reading it and I got to the fourth story, which we'll get more specific a little later, but as I was reading the fourth story, I thought to myself, he's really going to have to tank every other story in this book for me not to give it 5 stars.
Yeah, yeah.
And I gave it 5 stars, so he obviously did not tank it.
Yeah, it's I just, yeah, after every story I thought like, and it's obviously like his style has changed a little bit over time, but not, I wouldn't say like super dramatically, even though he's been publishing for 50 years ish.
Um, well, when did Carrie come out? 70s.
Yeah, that was, they just had an anniversary for that. Was it the 50-year anniversary?
And then he was doing short stories, obviously, before that, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly how long his career has been. It's been a while.
Yeah,
Quite a while.
He's in his 70s now, isn't he? And I think Carrie was published in his early 20s. So I think we must be around 50 years for his publishing career. And I feel like this is like the best of both worlds, where we've kind of got his more like developed storytelling and writing style, but it feels like old Stephen King weird ideas.
Mm-hmm.
To me anyway, because I like his new stuff, but I think I prefer his like old weird ideas. So
Now, I felt some of the stories to me felt like just vignettes, like pieces of a larger story,
yeah,
which I suppose one could say about any short story because that's the nature of them. But they felt like like there was a larger story that he had and just plucked this piece of it out.
yeah,
So I got that feeling with a few stories, and some of them felt completely complete, to be redundant,
yeah.
I suppose. But which I enjoyed. There was another short story collection I read not long ago that gave me the same feeling. I think it was Dwayne Swarzynski's. Some of his stories
Hmm.
gave me that same feeling. Like there's this much wider world that he's completely developed, and he's just showing us this snapshot of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. I feel like there are more references to other Stephen King works in this that I picked up on as well, because obviously there's the Cujo tie-in, sort of tie-in, and then every now and then I came across like a name in here, and I was like, wait, I've heard that name before.
Was this one of these stories to have someone named Carmody?
I think there was a comedy. The last story just threw out a name as well. Oh, I can't remember now. I always expect to see a Meryl though, but I don't think there is a Meryl in this collection. But I
I
love it when he does that.
I think there were a couple times where I was like, that sounds so incredibly familiar, and I would Google it and
Yeah,
see what would come up.
yeah,
Um, but again, I have such just a huge chunk of missing King time that I'm sure there's
yeah.
plenty that I wouldn't even recognize.
There are a couple of other people on YouTube that I watch that are like they've more carefully sort of like charted Stephen King characters and histories and stuff. So that like they got like a much better like they could just recall those details way better than I can, and they could tell you the connections like from book to book and stuff, which would be a really fun project. But I'm not doing that because that would probably I'd have to reread all the books again, and I probably will reread a lot of them over time, but I'd have to reread them all in order. It's like a PhD project.
I was going to say that would be a hell of a project.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to read the ones that I missed out on.
Yeah, and he keeps publishing stuff.
Yeah, and I have to grab that and read it.
I said to Tim Leben has got a really big, like when you actually look at his publishing history, I think he must have released almost as many books as Stephen King now. And I was like, I'm trying to catch up with them all, but you keep putting new books out. So it's like hard to keep up.
Damn writers.
Damn you and your awesome stories. I need to collect every single one like Pokemon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me. And you're not helping me. I just ordered two of the books that you've recommended.
I'm sorry.
I got the one. Oh.
Was it Frostbite?
What's that?
Was it Frostbite?
No, Frostbite is the one. I believe tomorrow is my review of Frostbite will go up.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on that one.
The short story collection, the green cover.
Oh, Conjured Darkness, the Michael Jeff Alexander.
Yes, I couldn't remember all three of his names.
Yeah.
I just got that one the other day. It arrived. And then tomorrow should be arriving The Women in the Woods.
Oh, I really, really hope you love that as much as I did, because I was so pleasantly surprised if it's an author I've never read before, never even heard of, and then I'm like blown away by a book. But I really love folk horror stuff, and I really think she nails it in that. So I'd be looking forward to when you review that one, especially.
Righty. Well, we're actually reviewing this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, just like randomly just start talking about everyone else's books.
That's why we're doing this together, for the conversation.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? I love talking with other people about books I love that I've read.
Absolutely. We could just go off on a tangent and talk about All the Fiends of Hell.
Oh, don't start me on All the Fiends of Hell.
Yeah, no, we won't do that.
Do that in another video, maybe.
Anything else to say about Two Talented Bastards?
I could, but we'd be going into spoiler territory for like towards the end, and I really don't want to, because it's it goes in such a good direction. So
yes.
Well,
all right. Well,
sorry, go on.
Did you have anything in your little notes that we didn't cover for this story?
No, I just summarized the stories in my notes so that when I write my review later on, I don't forget. But yeah, I think I wrote weird but uplifting. This story. Yeah.
Well, the next story, I am going to have to hear your notes. The Fifth Step.
Okay.
Wait a minute. All of a sudden, it just hit me. I remember what it was now. But please, your notes.
Right. So Jameson goes on his daily walk to Central Park, and a stranger sits next to him on a bench and wants to tell him stuff.
Yes.
I loved this one.
It was shocking.
Yeah.
So the fifth step, of course, this guy sits down next to Jameson, and basically it's a support group kind of thing. Yeah. I'm going through the steps, and I have to do the fifth step.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, it takes a very dark turn.
Yeah, I thought that this, because Stephen King writes so many like people being people stories, like with their flaws and all of that. So I thought it was just going to be like not a horror story. I thought it was going to be just like a story about a conversation on a bench.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised, like the last page and a half. I was like, what?
And it's pretty short, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the shortest in the book. It's I think it's like 10 pages, if that.
About 10 pages. Starts on
Yeah.
page 61 and ends on 70.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
did. It had that feeling of, oh, here's just people.
Yeah, and I like those stories, but I got way too relaxed, comfortable.
No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to
No.
do that.
I
And
oh, go on. No, go on.
oh, I was just gonna say this is one that's really tough to say anything about.
Hmm.
Because we've given you the basic premise, and anything else is going to be a spoiler.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too short to and like the key thing to talk about would be the ending, but I absolutely don't want to do that because it'll ruin the it's the ending is so much fun just because I wasn't even trying to work out where it was going to go as I was reading along because I wasn't really paying attention to the story length. I didn't know when I started the story that it was like 10 pages long. So I was just settling in with it.
One of the things I like when reading is when there's something revelatory or shocking that's incredibly subtle
Hmm.
and just sort of dropped in. And I feel that there's a line in here, a bit that does that, where you're just, again, we're reading along, it's just two people talking, and then one of them says something, and you could just skim over it and not even, and then you stop and go, holy shit, is
Yeah.
that just, did that?
Yeah, it's like a reading double take.
Yes.
It's like someone's walking you through a park or something, and they're like, "Oh, and over here we have trees, and then we water the grass over there. There's a dead body there, and then there are birds over in this." And you're like, "Whoa, wait,
Wait,
hang
go
on."
back. Go, what was
Yeah,
that last one? The
yeah,
grass? The part where I was talking about the grass? Yeah. I got that from this.
yeah. Yeah, it was so much fun, and I think as well. I started writing an article the other day, but it was just turning into a big rant, and I ditched it now. But you know, like this idea that a lot of people say about like Stephen King can't do endings, and I personally think that that's absolute crap because I just think that when there's been a bad ending, usually people are talking about the movie adaptation, and sometimes on some ideas are better on the page than they are on screen anyway. But I do think that mostly he does good endings. It's just that the few bad ones are the ones that everyone's like, oh well, like you can't do an ending. Look at this one. Like I know people were pissed off by Under the Dome and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
I think especially in his short stories, he's really good. Like I feel like he's really good in short story form, especially. And I would like this would be like a perfect example for me of like, oh no, he can stick a landing. Like
Oh
he's
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
I do think, and when you say bad endings, Under the Dome is the first thing that comes to mind to me.
yeah,
I love that book, and
yeah.
I don't hate the ending. It's just so bizarre,
It yeah. I
and it's
I
weird
yeah.
tonally, I think.
Yeah, I for me, for anyone who hasn't read Under the Dome, I would say so. Game of Thrones, I would deter people from watching because of the last season. I'd be like, don't, because it'll ruin your enjoyment of the rest of the show. Whereas with Under the Dome, I'm like, oh, I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, but I loved the reading of the rest of the book so much. It wouldn't like put me off rereading it or
Right.
recommending it to someone. It was to be honest, I really don't know how he could have ended that. Um, I'm sure he had other ideas, but I'm not really sure how you can end a concept like Under the Dome. So,
It just it's so out of left field
yeah,
that
yeah,
it's jarring, and I think maybe that's why so many people have a problem with it. Not that it's necessarily bad, it's
yeah,
just so out of nowhere.
yeah. It was a bit. It was a bit, and it felt a bit like it came up on you really fast because
Yes.
like the book is big, and so you like take your time with it, and then you get towards the end, and you're like, hang on, wait, what? I do the double take thing again. I was like, hang on, did he just?
And not that it isn't, not that there isn't some silliness to it.
Yeah.
I'm not completely defending the ending, but
Yeah.
yes, it is such a great book, and it does
Yeah.
not break the book, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I don't think it ruins the book. Like, but I know people who actually really like that ending because of the surprise, where people are like, oh wow, oh I like it. Like my mum really. Oh, hello, mum. She always watches all these videos, Eric. Yeah, she likes the ending of that, so I think people are split on it. But I do think in general he does a good ending, and yeah, especially in short stories. And I would point everyone to this one, like as to aid my argument that he actually does really good endings most of the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that was called The Weirdo.
Willie the Weirdo.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Well, oh, I really like this one. I was just looking at the notes quickly. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, so this is Willie and Grandpa, and they have something in common.
It made me think of another Stephen King story, but I don't want to say what that story is because that could be a little spoilery. But the relationship between Willie and Grandpa put me in mind of another Stephen King story where a younger person and an older person have a relationship.
Me too. I know which one you. Yeah.
But it certainly went in a direction that I was not expecting. Again,
Yeah.
the ending.
That was a short one as well, wasn't it? That wasn't a very long one for
A little
the.
over 10 pages.
Yeah, yeah. That one was a bit like a punch in the face, but like the good kind that you want when you read. Yeah, it was. I guess it was the characters and the internal monologue thing for me for that one, because I was like really invested, but that one I was a bit like, that one made me a bit twitchy while I was reading it, because I was like, oh, I have bad feeling.
Well, in this one, we have Willie and his sister, his mom and dad, and then his grandpa lives with them.
Yeah.
And so we get, and the family, except maybe grandpa, or, they call Willie a weirdo. And mom's like, oh,
Yeah.
don't say that. But yeah, he is kind of strange. And, we get these interesting conversations at the dinner table and the interesting conversations between like mom and the sister when they're doing the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting some indications that, yeah, Willie is kind of weird and grandpa's actually kind of weird too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely did not go where I was expecting it to go.
No, and like initially, I, in my opinion, I was a weird kid. I, like when I look, because like I can still remember like how my brain ticked over like thoughts I had when I was a kid, and very often I just felt very like I am an alien, and nobody. I feel different. I don't fit in, is how I always felt. And so whenever I read a character that they're being framed as a weirdo, and like other people are saying they're weird, I usually like really identify with those characters, and so like my sympathies go straight with them. And then yeah, like a page later, I was like, ooh, I don't know, actually.
Don't want to identify with this character.
I'm disturbed that for a second there I really identified with this character. I didn't have these hobbies, I gotta say. Not,
Yes.
I was just reading a lot, just a quite bookwormish type. I wasn't doing any of this.
No.
This book. Yeah,
No,
then you get to then when you get to like grandpa and you realize that they like what they have in common, I was like, oh no. But yeah, you could do a whole world of story to that. That could have been like a novel on its own, that idea, I think. Although I guess, like you say, it is similar relationship to a different novel he wrote. So I guess maybe he did branch out on it decades ago, really.
Yes. Yes.
Where would you rank this one in the whole book?
Ooh. I didn't think about that. I mean, I
Yeah,
do know my favorite. I think it's probably up there.
Yeah.
In the top half, I would say.
Yeah, I think so for me too.
Um, there's a couple, just looking at a couple of these titles, I'm like, I don't remember exactly what these stories were. There's a couple of them you're gonna have to remind me.
Yeah, that's between the two of us. We got it. Don't worry.
But yeah, I'd say probably because of the characters and the ending, what goes on. Yeah, I'd say top half.
Yeah, I thought this collection had lots of like surprising elements in stories. I think maybe that's why it reminded me of one of his older collections, because a lot of his old short horrors, they'd have like a punch at the end. And then his newer I say newer, still from like 30 years ago or something, but he was branching more into um exploring people a bit more. I think, rather than having like a horror concept and rolling with that, if that makes any sense. So this felt like a return to like, yeah, after those first few stories, I was like, I don't know what I'm getting for the rest of this book now. Because I always think I know where things are going, and then yeah, those, especially those like really short ones. Yeah, I would put that in the top half for me as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I may end up putting all of these in the top half. So
Yeah, that's why it's hard to rank Stephen King stories.
but the next one is one of the longer ones.
Yeah, it's like a novella length, isn't it?
It is not as long as Rattlesnakes, I don't think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I can't do math in my head this quickly.
No, me.
But definitely one of the longer ones, and absolutely my favorite one in the book, and that is Danny Coughlin's, or Coughlin's. I say Coughlin's Bad Dream.
Yeah, I see it that way. Yeah, this is a great story.
This is the one, when I was reading it, I just knew, I was like, this is absolutely 5 stars. And the rest of this book is going to have to be trash.
Yeah,
The worst of the worst for me not to still give it 5 stars after this story.
yeah.
It's about Danny Coughlin has a dream about a murdered woman, a young
Hmm.
woman who's been murdered, and he goes to where the dream took place and finds the dead body, and then
Yeah,
it's that's the first few pages.
yeah,
It's everything that happens after that, without, again, trying to avoid spoilers.
yeah.
Um, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the characters. I
Hmm.
loved the detectives, because
Hmm.
it does become an investigation. Um, it's again, it went places that I didn't expect,
Hmm.
and just beautiful, beautiful Stephen King.
Yeah, it was great. I liked I liked all the characters as well. Even the cop character that I don't think we're supposed to like, but you can see where he's coming from.
Yeah,
Initially. Yeah.
he's he's a great character.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether or not you like him or agree with him, he's a well written and interesting, compelling character.
Yeah. Because if all you know initially is that a woman is dead,
Yes.
and you care about that, and all signs seem to point in a certain direction, I see why you might be an asshole to the person that you're convinced did it. So
Right.
yeah, yeah. That was
And the person's reasoning, I had a dream about it. Of course
yeah,
you're gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about?
yeah. You'd be side-eyeing that person, wouldn't you? Be like, it's a bit convenient.
Yes.
um, yeah, it's that one to me was like, I really love stories that get me wondering, like, how would I have dealt with this? Like, if I had a dream and I went there and found a body, would I report it? Would I report it anonymously, or would I just be like, oh, and then I was like, oh, I was in my head going, why didn't he just say that he happened to be there and saw it? Or what I mean? Like, you start like how could he have possibly got out of like implicating himself in any way?
But then he's
Yeah,
got to explain why he was there in the first
yeah,
place.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a national park or something. It's behind
Yeah.
this abandoned gas station. What were you doing there, pal?
I just
You know?
just like to ride around looking for abandoned gas stations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it just and I had asked you once you had read it, um, what you felt about the cop because you notoriously uh have issues with the depiction of mental health in books.
Yeah, well, I do you know, I don't think I thought about it that much as I was reading it, like the mental health aspect, because um it read as true to me for that character. So yeah, I do it's just something if anyone is unfamiliar with me in Eric's audience, I do gripe a lot about horror stories that use mental health, just usually because I don't like mental health as a villain, if that makes sense. So only because some some people use it as a bit of a lazy horror shortcut,
That's
as like a,
crutch.
yeah, as like a storytelling device rather than approaching it with any sort of integrity or honesty. And I've read more insulting depictions of people with mental health problems than, oh, we're going to have a look at this particular issue. But yeah, I suppose when it's done well, I don't think about it because I didn't really think about it in terms of the character here, because it felt like the natural road.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I
And
know.
what seems to start out as just sort of a tick, a
Yeah,
character tick,
yeah.
uh,
Oh yeah, that was great.
progresses.
Yeah. Um, it's so yeah, that yeah, I loved that. I forgot about that take until you said about it, but that was just such a cool little idea, like detail about the character.
Mhm.
Um, I know people that have got little subconscious things like that. Not his particular thing, but things they do without realizing it. That you notice if you're out because you're not the person.
Mhm.
I don't think he'd mind me saying this. My brother just absentmindedly twirls a bit of his hair when he's talking to people or when he's deep in thought. And sometimes when I'm talking to him and he's like twirling, 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 and I'm watching it like get like tighter and tight like this. And I'm like, oh, that's gonna start hurting his head. He never notices it until someone goes, "You twirled that hair into a almost into a dreadlock." I guess. But yeah, I love that kind of detail about characters.
Yes. And I mean, Stephen King is a master at building the characters, making them
Yeah,
as real and three dimensional as one can in a book.
yeah, and even though I've really the last few years I have really branched out of just reading Stephen King or Joe Hill stories, and I've read I don't even know how many different authors now, and great authors as well. And like I have discovered there is like a whole world of horror lit beyond Stephen King, but I do still think that no one does characters like him. The closest second for me is honestly Kit Power for characters. Um, oh no. Oh, you froze there. I was like, how long have I just been talking to myself?
Nope,
Um,
I'm listening. Kit Power.
yeah, Kit Power is an indie author that not enough people know about, and I'll keep bleating on about that until I die probably. But yeah, his characters are like a closest second to me for Stephen King level characters. What did you think of the other cop character?
I liked her.
Yeah,
Um, and she's the what's the I just lost the term I wanted to use. She's the bedrock character, I suppose,
hmm,
as her partner. I'm trying to avoid spoiling anything,
yeah,
uh, but as her partner becomes a little more obsessed with the case, let's say,
hmm, hmm,
she's the one. She wants to see justice done,
hmm,
but she's also perhaps a little more open-minded and a little less tunnel visioned
yeah,
than her
yeah.
partner. And we get a lot of character stuff with her.
Yeah, yeah, she was great. I thought that she represented that idea of like that I've lost a phrase I wanted to use now. The like the cognitive dissonance of like when you know what reality is, but then something shows you, oh, actually
Right.
this something, and like that thing that I know that a lot of people I think it gets brought up all the time, that term, when you're talking about like religious people who really struggle with they know reality or their own morals or something, and then there's like something that contradicts it in the Bible or something like that, and people really struggle with like marrying the two things together because they're opposites. And I felt like she represented like the average person in this scenario that would just be like, I don't know. Logic and reality tells me that cannot be true, but you know,
Yes, but there seems
evidence
to
is
be
leading that way.
something else is telling me.
Yeah, yeah, and like resisting with the evidence is actually pointing, because it just doesn't sound like something you could never go into a court and be like, well,
Right.
I believe this because of this. Like, it's, yeah, um, I agree with you that this, like, I don't know if it's my favorite story in here, but they're all so good. So it's not because there's anything lacking from this story. It's just I'm finding I don't know which one my favorite is.
It's absolutely my favorite. It's in the top half.
It's in the top half, yeah.
Definitely in the top half. Um, yeah, I didn't think it I don't think it bogged down. It was just, I think it was Stephen King at his peak.
Yeah, yeah, it's such yeah, it's a great story, and I do love it when he does a collection and he just throws a novella in there.
Yeah.
Here you go, have a longer piece of fiction to enjoy for a bit. Um, yeah, that was a great story. And then we follow on to a shorter one again with
Yes.
Finn.
This one
This
you're
might,
gonna have to absolutely remind me of what this is.
I actually think that this might be my favorite one.
Okay.
And I've realized this story made me realize that I probably got my storytelling style from Stephen King, because this is darkly humorous and it's about a guy, Finn, that has the worst luck in the world. Stuff just happens, like it's just a series of unlucky things just happens to him.
Yes. Okay.
he's he's mistaken for someone else. And unfortunately for him,
Yes.
the person he's mistaken for is in some shit.
It's very, very funny. Very, yeah, it's a story that's hard to categorize,
Yeah.
I think. It's not
Yeah.
horror. It's
He,
misadventure.
yeah, it's the stuff, the unfortunate series of events for this guy are like outrageously unfortunate. Like, this is like more than bad luck. This is like the stuff of nightmares for most people. I'm sorry if you can hear that noise. My my cat is stuck between the window and the blinds. She's wicked it out.
Is
Sorry.
that Loki?
Oh no, that's Whirly.
Ah,
Loki's usually present when I do a video for some reason, but he's elsewhere today. Yeah, sorry, so the stuff that's happening to him is not just like, you stub your toe or you spill your coffee. It's but his own attitude about what's happening to him is very like, oh, of course this has
yeah.
happened to me. Like,
Yeah, it's to be expected.
yeah. I think that's what makes it so funny, because he didn't have to write it in that tone. Like, if he wanted to, he could have done it more like a straight up like disaster, like if with a character with a different mindset.
Yeah, it could have been like a dark thriller kind of story.
Yeah,
Um, especially with the antagonist that we have,
yeah,
who was really fascinating.
yeah. I'd like to think that if ever I was unfortunate enough for something similar to happen to me, I'd like to think I could approach it with humor. But you know, in real life, no one could.
Yeah, yeah. So for those who are interested, I don't think I'm spoiling anything. Basically, we have this character whose whole life has been plagued with bad luck, and he is abducted because the abductors think he is someone else.
Yeah.
And that's
And
the
then,
setup for what's going to happen.
and of course, when he tries to tell them that, they're like, "Well, you would say that
Yeah,
because we caught you." So,
yeah.
yeah, and I mean, it is really quite horrific. Like that's quite a frightening. Like that is quite a frightening thing to happen to anybody. But yeah, I can't stop like I was laughing so much as I was reading it because of how it's written. So
Yes.
it's definitely the funniest one in the book, I think. Like overall, like in tone and stuff.
Who knew Uncle Steve could be so funny?
Yeah, and he is funny sometimes, but not normally.
Wacky.
Yeah, yeah. When I was yeah. So apologies to Eric. Like Eric's just been waiting on me, everyone, to finish this book. He finished this way before I did. My life went a bit mad over the last month,
Well,
so
you were busy reading 63 books in 1 month.
I was, and then yeah, and then I've had this last month. We've had plans that have taken us out of the house every weekend, and that's not normally my routine. And I usually do all my reading on the weekend, so it took me a while. But so when I was making notes on all of these stories, just recapping them to make sure I didn't forget them. And then when I was like rereading my notes today, I was like, oh yeah, this whole book is solid gold. Because it's taken me weeks to read it, so I'd forgotten some of them. But yeah, that's I think that's what was it called, Finn. I
And
think that one's quite different to his usual style,
mhm.
but very Stephen King still, though. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
What was the
Another one that
next?
goes in the top half.
Yeah, they're all in the top half so
They're all
far.
in the top half.
Well, on Slide In Road is the next one.
Slide In Road. Yes.
Oh, I remember this one now. Oh, this
I
make
do.
it top half too.
This might be the, without necessarily remembering everything else, this might be the only one that's at the bottom of the top half for me.
The bottom of the top half.
Bottom of the top half. Um, this is the one with the family going on vacation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I think this is another one that's just sort of feels like a slice of life lifted out of a bigger story for me. Um, and it's the husband and the wife, her father or his father, one of
It
their
didn't say
fathers,
which one, my note, but one of
uh,
them.
and then two kids,
Yeah.
two young kids, going on a trip, and they've taken a side road because the grandfather told them to take this route, I
Mm.
believe. And then it's just something that happens
Yeah.
on this road.
Hmm.
Um, and this is the kind of story that gave me sort of a Joe Lansdale kind of feel,
Mm.
simply because a lot of his things are sort of backwoods, wrong place, wrong time
Hmm.
kind of stories. And that's
Yeah.
what this felt like. Not the writing style. I wouldn't say, oh, it was written just like a Joe Lansdale story, just sort of the vibes of it.
Yeah, it made me really nervous. As soon as certain characters turn up, I was like,
Yes.
oh no. And I I was really frightened because I think we've talked before about I really prefer supernatural horror 9 times out of 10 because real world horror uh, I don't really like reading horror stories about stuff that can actually happen because I get paranoid. Well, not paranoid, but you know, like I don't read home invasion stories normally, for example, and I definitely didn't read them when I lived on my own because um, I always feel I'm full of like a grim feeling after those, rather than if you're just reading about zombies ripping people to pieces. It's not really the same.
Hmm.
But this one had me like all
Yes.
tense and yeah,
Absolutely real world horror.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, and I think that I was like, because it's like so suspenseful, I was like on the edge of my seat with it and like couldn't put it down. And I was again like doing that thing where I was like, oh, how would I get out of this? And it had nothing.
And it's not that long. It's only about 20 pages.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's, as always, it's the characters. We've got, I mean, quite a few of the pages in the beginning are just meeting the characters, getting how they interact with each other, what their relationships. I mean, not just the familial relationships, but their
Hmm.
relationships with each other. Um, I'd say it's got to be halfway through before we even get to
Yeah,
uh, the stuff
yeah,
thing that happens.
yes.
And that's just, again, a great hallmark of Stephen King's writing is that he can pull you in when it's just people in a car.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and yeah, so it's only when you kind of like get to that the inciting incident, as it were,
Yes.
and which usually is closer to the start of a story. But yeah, it's only when you get there you're like, oh, it's this kind of story. Um, and I think Stephen King, I think he does generally prefer to end on a cheery note. However, when he doesn't, he goes really dark sometimes. So I was like, oh my God, I do not know. I didn't know which way he was gonna go. So I was like, yeah, shit.
Well, I was thinking with the beginning of the story, he has stories where roads go to unexpected places,
Hmm.
stories with roads and a supernatural element.
Hmm.
And I was somewhat expecting that sort of thing at the
Yeah.
beginning of the story. Oh, where's this road going to take them, or what kind of transformation are they going to go through because of this side road that they've taken?
Hmm.
It's not. It doesn't. The GPS doesn't seem to be working correctly, if I remember. Um,
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
and so it's like, what's the supernatural catch going to be? It's not that at all.
Yeah. Um,
So for me, that's the twist, is that it wasn't. There was no
yeah.
weird supernatural twist.
And the other thing I really liked about it was what you were saying earlier about how a lot of these feel like a little snapshot of a bigger story. I had me wondering more about Grandpa.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love Grandpa. And I was like, ah, you could write a whole. Surely there could be like a Grandpa prequel.
Yes.
Yeah, um, yeah, that one got me feeling all nervous and maybe that might have been the most uncomfortable I was reading any of them. Just for the stuff that freaks me out personally.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think people who read Joe Lansdale will understand the comparison that I've made.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
speaking of, we were talking about characters and great character authors. You said Kit Power. For me, Joe Lansdale.
yeah.
Just, I mean, Hap and Leonard, the Hap and Leonard books. I think they're the greatest duo in literature. Um, and I've always said I could just read. I would read a book if he wrote just Hap and Leonard sitting at a kitchen table talking for the entire 200 pages.
Yeah,
I I'm in for that. They're such
yeah.
amazing characters, and he definitely is an author that goes to dark places.
I'm
So
gonna
this
have to
story,
read more Joe Lansdale.
what's that?
Gonna have to read more Joe Lansdale. I'm not very familiar.
I mean, he's got horror. He's got straight up horror stuff, but best known for his Joe Lansdale or his Joe Lansdale, his Hap and Leonard stuff, which is mystery thrillers with the two best friends in all of literature.
Oh, cool! I love that.
And actually, have you seen? Um, there's a movie coming out. He's had a few things made of his stuff, but there's a new one coming out called The Thicket with
Mm.
Juliette Lewis, Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, I think I've seen some news of that.
Comes out. There's a trailer out now. It comes out in September, I believe.
Mm.
And it's actually one that I have not read. So I just ordered it so I can read it before the movie comes out.
That's typical that's one you haven't read yet.
Yeah, well, I can see all my Joe Lansdales. I've read over half of them, but there's plenty that I haven't gotten to yet because there's just so much stuff. But yeah, Joe Lansdale, one of my top 3 authors of all time.
Oh, cool. Well, I'll definitely have to yeah, I'll have to read those because I do put your recommendations on my wish list and then I wait for Santa
Ah,
to
of
to
course.
surprise me with whatever from the wish list. But you know what it's like. The TBR pile is
Yes.
never ending, so I never know when I'm gonna get to the stuff. But I tried to do that read what you own challenge this year. I got to 64 books of my own, and then I broke my book buying ban in quite a big way.
Well, I do have, just in physical copies, over 1,000 books I have not read yet.
How do you fit them all in your house?
Well, can you see the space that I'm sitting in? That's all the
Yeah.
space I have.
Just
I'm
make
trapped
yourself
in this
local.
trapped in this little tiny space surrounded by books.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I have no shelf space in my office anymore, so the books are gonna have to move elsewhere around the house. And now I have to make that decision of which ones, though. Which ones are banished from my office? I don't know.
Oh no.
I
Like,
might make a Stephen King display downstairs on one of my big bookcases.
I have 4 book carts that are filled, and then there's, just from where I'm sitting, I could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 piles
Hmm.
of books. And my, in a very special spot for now, my Dark Tower box set that I finally bought.
Ooh,
I
fancy.
got my tax return. I got a nice fancy Dark Tower box set. Haven't read it. Well, I've read the first book, but
Hmm.
that was when it first came out.
Well, it was a while back then.
Yes.
Oh, but
Um,
you haven't. Sorry, my husband's sneaking in to hand me a cup of tea.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, did you hear that, babe? He said thank you. um, the stealth. Then I didn't hear him come up the stairs with it or anything. Um, yeah. So you've never like done the Dark Tower journey properly yet.
No, I was very excited when The Gunslinger was first coming out because it was Stephen King. It's going to be this weird Western,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not happy with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when the extended edition or author's preferred edition, there was another edition that came out, and I said, all right, well, let's try it again. And I only got about halfway through it,
Mm-hmm.
and I stopped. But everybody keeps saying, just get to the second book.
Yeah, I picked up that first one and I really didn't like it and I was like on the side of people like I thought it was a complete snooze fest and I wasn't really interested in everything and everyone like all of the women in my family read Stephen King and they've all read The Dark Tower and they were like, "Oh yeah, the first one isn't like the best. Just get to the second one and if you don't enjoy the second one, then abandon it." But then the second one was incredible and like yeah then I mean there are better books in the series than others like with any series but yeah I'm gonna join the ranks of people telling you to just get to the second one.
Well, I will eventually, when I get to it, decide to dig into it. I will reread The Gunslinger because it has been ages.
Yeah,
What's funny is it's got one of the most iconic opening lines of any
yeah,
book,
maybe the best opening line.
and and then it nosedives. Um, yeah, eventually I'm going to dig into those. The next Stephen King I plan on reading, barring any unforeseen circumstances, is Doctor Sleep.
Oh
I've never read it,
yeah.
and I've never seen the movie because I want to read the book first. But I was listening to the KingCast podcast,
Yeah.
and they had Dan Lloyd as their
Oh
guest,
wow.
and
How
the
cool.
guest co-host was Mike Flanagan, and so they were
Oh.
talking to Dan/Danny Lloyd about being in The Shining, Kubrick's The Shining, and then the fact that has a small part in Doctor Sleep.
Yeah, it's a little cameo.
And I was like, I guess it's time for me to read that.
Oh, that's I based on what I know about your reading preferences, I think that you'll really like Doctor Sleep. I was pleasantly surprised by that one because writing a sequel to The Shining is quite a ballsy move. Because The Shining is still one of his most like famous and beloved works, and I thought, oh my god, I don't even know how you get into the headspace of going. Do you know what? I think I'm going to carry on with this story because people are going to be. I think people would be extra critical of a sequel rather than like a standalone novel. So especially
Yes.
for that one, but yes, I personally like it more than The Shining. So
Interesting.
yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to your thoughts on that one when you get to it.
Well, I've read The Shining twice.
Hmm.
I read it um, when I was just reading. I just read it in general. And then when I was at Bowling Green State University, I took a fantasy literature class, and it was one of the books for that class.
Oh, really? That's
So
so
I read it
cool.
again. Oh, it was probably one of the coolest classes I've ever taken. We had to read The Wonderful Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep,
Yeah.
which I'm a Philip K. Dick fan.
Yeah.
Excited to read that. The Shining, The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell,
Hmm.
which I had already read.
Yeah.
Um, Being There, which was a Peter Sellers movie based on this book, Being There, which was a very funny book. And then 9.5 Weeks,
Oh, wow. That's.
the Sex Times book.
I didn't know there was a
Which,
book of that.
what's that?
I didn't know that there was a book of that. I just thought there was the basically pornographic film.
And that was the part of the class I did the worst on because I could not find a copy of the book.
Mm,
And so when it came time to the tests, I had to go off of having seen the movie. And apparently
yeah.
there's some pretty big changes because I did not do well on those tests.
You did
But
your best.
I read everything else for that class, and it was all good stuff.
Cool.
But
Yeah,
it
that
was,
sounds like that's a great reading list. The only reason that I never did an English lit degree here and I chose different courses is because I looked at the reading lists and this is no disrespect, but it was all classics, Pride and Prejudice, things like that. And like not that those books aren't great, it's just that's just not my preferred reading. And I was like, there was nothing but I'm sure it's changed in the last few years because uh people are a little bit less snobby about other genres now. But at the time I was like, this doesn't feel like it's gonna be like really interesting to me to study just like book after book of classics written in
right.
the mid 1800s to mid 19. So I just thought, but yeah, that reading list is great for for a class.
Absolutely. And we got to, well, I didn't, but he showed Blade Runner. But I find that film incredibly boring and didn't bother showing up for the second day, the second half of the movie.
Oh.
I had tried watching it before, and then I went to he showed it over 2 days of class. I went to the first one, and I was like, nope, still bored out of my mind by this movie. So skipped the next class and came back in when we were back to discussing the book, which I love the book.
Yeah.
I don't know, the movie does nothing for me.
So hard if you have to study something that you're not only not interested in, but it bores you to death. Because I think we spent a long. I had a film class, and our test was on Citizen Kane, and I do acknowledge everything it did for the film industry, and do think he was a genius. But the actual story of that film, I was like, I see why this is a film they show to people on filmmaking classes and writing classes and stuff, but oh my god, it's not my cup of tea, and we spent months on that.
I've
Jesus.
taken a few film classes. When I was at the local community college, I took a film class, and we watched like some pretty good stuff.
Mhm.
But the teacher was able to make a film class boring. contemporary
wow.
film class at that. Nice guy, but yeah, somehow just a very boring teacher. And he thought there were, I forget what movie it was specifically, but there were a number of movies where he would censor part of the movie for the class because he thought maybe it was too graphic or too offensive or something. And it would be movies that I had seen. And I'm like, really? You think this is a 1980s, has grown up on slasher films and all this, and you think this little scene from this plain old movie is too... Oh, someone getting gassed in an oven, like in their kitchen.
Wow. Okay.
I forget what movie it is, but somebody's murdered by having their head shoved in the oven and the gas turned on, and he thought that was too graphic. And so I'm going to skip over this part.
That seems just so strange for a class, though. To like, oh, I'm going to show you this film, but not all of it.
Yeah. But great class. And then when I was at Bowling Green, I took an Italian cinema class.
Oh, cool.
Which was interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, we've digressed. Sorry, everyone. Red screen.
So on Slide In Road, red screen. What is red screen? I don't recall.
I'm just looking at my notes. Oh, this was really good. I've done that with every single one so far.
Top half.
A cop arrests a guy because he killed his wife for a reason. Oh,
yes. Yes.
Yeah, that was another one with the ending that made me go, ooh.
Yeah. Okay. I remember it. I remember what the title means.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the... Oh man, this is a difficult one to say anything about the story.
It's really short again. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to give anything at all away.
I don't think we can really talk about this one that much, Eric, apart from that this is a proper horror idea.
Yes.
It's really short and make you paranoid about everyone you see.
Yes. This is another story. It reminded me of another short story I read. And I can't remember what it was, whose collection it was in. Well, and I can't say anything about it because...
Yeah.
I don't want to give anything away. It's just somebody has gone to their neighbor's house for a reason and sort of been chased back to their own house.
That was my story.
Is that your story?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it up.
I thought for a second, I was like, but I thought, I was thinking it was the first story in a collection, but it's not.
Yeah, it is. It is the first story in the, yeah.
It's the first story in the end?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know it's not Corpsing. Corpsing, I know what that first story is.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yes.
Yeah.
Reminded me of that.
Oh my God. I've never been so complimented in my entire life.
I mean, you shouldn't be too complicated. I couldn't remember it was or complimented it. I couldn't remember it was your story.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. I'll take any sort of Stephen King comparison.
Yes, it reminded me of that story.
Oh, cool. It's made my day that you said that.
Which was a great story. When I reviewed that book, you had that thing where it was just this very subtle sentence on the first or second page that makes you do a double take.
Oh, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Thank you.
As I was reading, I'm just like, la, 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 okay, this is wait, what? Walking on the walls or the ceiling, I don't remember now specifically, but
it was something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But it's just placed, it's not emphasized, it's just in the middle of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, you can see where I've got that from now, I guess. I must have absorbed that technique over my years of reading Stephen King. Yeah, I don't yeah, we can't really talk about this story without spoiling it, so let's just move on to the next one.
Well, people who have read your book and know that story might have an idea then of
Yeah,
the ideas in this story. Red Screen, yeah, but very
it's a
good
really
story.
good one though. Yeah, scary. We got
All right,
the
then we have the Turbulence Expert. This one I do recall.
That's good because my note just says I'm not sure what to make of this one.
It is a very odd story. It's a guy who seems to be on call to this mysterious agency, and he goes on an airplane and somehow keeps it from crashing when it would have crashed if he wasn't there.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. It is difficult to try to explain it without giving anything away. But that's the gist of it,
Yeah.
essentially.
I guess maybe for me then this is the only one so far that would be in the bottom half because I don't think I had many thoughts on it and I'm struggling to remember beyond what you just said. I'm struggling to remember it.
For me, I like this kind of story because it supposes this sort of secret world that the average person doesn't know about. And I like these stories of people who are doing things we don't know about that are keeping the world safe and normal and whatever. I feel like Clive Barker had at least one story that sort of had this sort of same kind of theme. But it's basically without this guy, without this organization, there would be hundreds more plane crashes in the world than there are.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember it now. Yeah.
Yes. And
It's
so
yeah, it's a cool idea.
it's him going on the plane, meeting his seatmates, and what happens, what he does, which isn't actually much. It's not like he's some action hero that does something that saves the plane from the lightning strike or something. It's very subtle, but it does save the plane. Nobody knows that he's done this. They just think, okay, we made it through the turbulence. But
Yeah.
so I like that sort of secret world within our world kind of thing.
Yeah, that reminds me a little bit of the show Supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Winchesters just going around and no one knows like anything is going on. And they did have an episode on a plane where demons had been bringing planes down and they were on the
Yep.
plane trying to figure out who the demon was. I think that was probably season 1.
I was going to say that's either season 1 or 2, and I think it's 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember they're trying to figure it out quietly, but then of course it gets dramatic to like
Yes,
in the
of
third
course.
act. But yeah, that's made me
But
want to
this,
watch it again now.
I think this is more subtle than that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's not gremlins, and it's not a demon. Spoilers,
Yeah.
people. It's not. Is it a spoiler if you say what's not in the story?
Yeah, as long as you don't eliminate everything.
But yeah, I could see the comparison between that and the Supernatural episode. Um, but yeah, I would still keep it in the top half
Yeah.
for me. But then it's sometimes a story simply because it fits into one's preferences, you give it a little leeway.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, but that's always the fun thing about talking to fellow Stephen King fans because we've all got different favorite and least favorite stories, and you can just talk forever about Stephen King books, really.
Although you and I do have the same favorite story
Yeah, we do.
of all of all
Yeah,
his stuff.
but I think it's a lot of people's favorite story.
And I am talking not book, but story.
Yeah, story. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just the best.
Because your favorite book, I only gave 4 stars.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I do. Well, I did find it very hard when I ranked my Stephen King books a couple of years ago. That was very hard, and I've changed my mind about
Yeah.
the ranking order of most. I'm going to re-rank them soon.
Well, I
And
just
got
read it for the
yeah.
first time earlier this year.
Hmm.
And yeah, 4 stars.
Maybe like I think maybe your favorites have got stuff to do with like when you read them, because
Oh,
I
absolutely.
I wonder if my favorite short story collections would be different if I hadn't read Night Shift and Skeleton Crew, like back when I did, when I was like just really getting into horror. Maybe I'd
Yeah.
prefer other collections if I read them at a different time or something. I don't know.
Well, I think, and you've probably heard this story multiple times. I know my regular viewers have heard this, but Pet Cemetery
Hmm.
used to call it for decades. I would tell people it was the second most boring book I'd ever read. And I just reread it last year or the year before, and now it's in my top 5 Stephen King books. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I do that with films as well. I remember the first time I watched Midsummer, I really didn't like it, but that was because it was it was Ari Aster did Hereditary and then Midsummer, and because Hereditary was so dark, like looking and everything, I thought the Midsummer like that was quite contrast, and I was like, oh, it's a bit sunshiny for me, and then I went back to it like 6 months later, and now I've watched it like 1,000 times. I loved it, and I was like, why didn't I like it the first time?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh wow, yeah, it's
I
really
mean, I
good.
know everything that happens in it,
Yeah,
but I do need to watch it.
yeah, it's great. It's a feast for the eyes, that film. Like every frame of it, there's stuff to look at. So yeah, I don't know. I must have just been in a darker, more dismal frame of mind when I watched it the first time.
Well, after the turbulence expert, we have Lori,
Yeah.
and I don't remember what this one is.
So an oldish man has lost his wife, and his sister, who is worried about him being lonely, brings him a dog so that he's not alone. And he doesn't want the dog at first, but sort of takes it. And I mean, that's kind of the story. Um,
Yeah, I vaguely remember, but yeah, I'm not getting any details popping up for this one.
yeah, I think that one I think is just about like well, to me it was just like a man and his dog.
Just sort of
Like
slice of life.
yeah, like yeah.
Oh, wait, where's the page number? Is it the one with the alligator?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. There we go. Shiny.
Oh, oh, I get it now. Thought it was a little island. I can like, see it now.
Shiny alligator.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. That's another one. Yes, definitely like a piece of the story plucked out and handed to us.
yeah, yeah. I really liked it because as far as like incidents go or anything, apart from the alligator, but it's not like this. I mean, this isn't a horror story, but I just thought it was lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a nice little character piece with this something thrown in at the end.
yeah. He does people and relationships really well, and um, I'm very obsessed with my cats. They're family to me, so I really appreciate it when people write cats and dogs and pets in as members of the family, rather than they're just people could take or leave them. I never understand it when I read or watch stories where there's a pet and something happens to it and no one really seems to care that much. Like I'd be devastated. So I liked this little doggo in the story. It was cute.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that was again top half.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's not really much to say about it though, really, is there? I suppose.
No, not really. Without spoiling the thing
Yeah,
that happens, because other than that, it's just about him and the dog and
yeah,
his golden years.
yeah. Like, his life is looking a bit different to what he's used to, or I guess what he would hope for his later years. So it's like readjusting with his new little friend. Little doggy friend.
And after that, we have what's either the longest or second longest, since I didn't do the math.
Longest. I checked.
So Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream is the longest?
Yes.
Okay, so second longest. And the sequel to My Little Cujo, Rattlesnakes.
So good. I
yes.
really, really like this one.
Now, on the one hand, I was disappointed because I wanted just a story about rattlesnakes killing people left and right, because that's my preferred subgenre.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just want killer animals.
Yeah.
A story where we're introduced to, 10 or 15 people, just to have them all die because of rattlesnakes attacking would have been great. And that's not what this is.
Yeah.
But it is a fantastic story. So it's, I don't remember character names in this case, but it's the father from Cujo.
Yeah. Who we don't see in Cujo really much.
Right. Because he had to go off and take care of that problem.
Yeah.
From work. And can we spoil the end of the book Cujo? For those who haven't read it? I'll just say the end of the book is different than the end of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is definitely sequel to the book, because the events and the ending of that book play a big part in where he is in his life at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's down in Florida, staying at a friend's place for the summer because of some things that have happened in his life. And he meets this eccentric woman who pushes a stroller for twins that just has sets of clothes, and she acts as if her twins are still with her.
Yeah.
They have died. And it goes on from there. I don't think I'm giving anything away.
Yeah.
And if you show your cover represents this story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, so it does. Yeah.
Although, I mean, I don't know why that's not a stroller, but...
Yeah.
Just a couple of beach chairs.
I really like this story, firstly, because I never expected to see another... So it's like a Cujo sequel, but like there's no Cujo, obviously, because this is years later. And I really liked that we got a piece of life from a character that's, barely touched on in Cujo, so we get to follow somebody else and like how they were affected by the stuff in Cujo. And I wouldn't say that this is like really a horror story, but there's some horrible imagery. Well, no, it is, isn't it? There's some really horrible imagery in it, with those sets of clothes and stuff. And
yes. It's possibly, I'd have to look through it again, but possibly the most spooky of stories in this book.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It's definitely a very spooky story. Again, I had no, aside from just wanting killer rattlesnakes running rampant, no expectations for what this story was going to be or where it was going to go. And so I was very surprised at what the story turned out to be.
Yeah.
And
it keeps unfolding.
And I'm not one to analyze the things I read. I'm not that smart. But I do think it is, it's about grief, and it's about holding on, and it's about letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And at least that's what I think.
Yeah, it's like there's quite a lot going on in it emotionally, and then obviously because of the events happening, you're questioning a lot of stuff. But yeah, I feel like some of this is probably I probably look a bit too deeply into stuff sometimes, but I feel like some of this is like the stuff of nightmares for Stephen King. The main character, you know, like what, like the turn his life has taken, it would be terrible. And yeah, it is really spooky, and it's the way he's describing the sounds, like the squeaking. I was like, oh,
Squeaking wheel.
Yeah.
There is one particular image, a little later in the book or the story, that involves the main character. I'm trying to do this without spoilers, but get you to understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When he wakes up in the middle of the night, and I believe he goes into the guest room.
Yeah.
Sees something in the bed that is so bizarre as to be horrific.
Yeah, it's horrible, and I know exactly what you mean. And there's a podcast called Talking Scared. They had Stephen King on as a guest recently talking about this, and they brought up that scene as well as just like the stuff of nightmares, like it's ugh, it's like shuddering.
I'll have to
Yeah.
listen to that.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah, it's a good podcast. Especially, I take my hat off to anyone that can get Stephen King for a podcast, because he doesn't really do them.
He was on the Kingcast.
On the Kingcast, yeah.
Which, yeah, I have my list of podcasts that I listen to every week. Mm-hmm. I'll have to add Talking Scared.
Yeah, it's good. Always has that. Yes, it's always just author interview, like in-depth author interviews, and he always gets like great guests and stuff. So, but yeah, no, this story is like super creepy and spooky. And what I read into it was the lady who's lost her twins and she's still pushing the pram around. I really liked the difference in. I feel like it played with like perception, like how you're perceiving these things. So like the way that she perceives like the stroller is different to the way that he perceives it. And yeah, can't spoil stuff, but just things are different to the way you think they are.
Do you think this all happened because he was polite to the weird neighbor lady?
Yeah, I felt like because everyone else in the town sort of regards her as a bit of a nut. But, and you know, he's got a lot of empathy because he's also lost someone. And he was kind.
Yes, he sort of indulged her fantasy.
Yeah.
And that might be the inciting incident.
Yeah, and it's like the kind of thing that any nice person might do, just to, because they're thinking about making the other person comfortable or whatever, or just, you know, there's no harm, you think, in I'll just go along with this, it's fine. And then it's like halfway through the book then you're like, oh no, he shouldn't have.
That's why I'm never going to do anything nice for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's why when you see any stranger, you just completely blank them. Pretend you can't see them at all.
That's the lesson I took from this story. Never be nice.
Yeah. If someone's a little bit nutty, you go, "Hey, you're nuts. I'm not joining in with you."
I won't even have a tea party with my little niece.
I don't want you.
Nobody at that table. There's nothing in this cup.
This is real tea.
You little 3-year-old.
Your doll can't talk or eat cookies.
Exactly. Thanks, Stephen King.
Yes, that's the lesson we should all take from this book, everyone. Is shut down anything fun or nice. In case.
Yes, absolutely. Probably my second favorite story. Definitely in the top half.
Yeah, this one might be my favorite, actually. It's just so hard with it. This is such a good collection. I'm gonna have to pick a favorite at some point, but I don't want to.
This is why on my interview show I make the guests pick their favorite thing to talk about. I can't pick a favorite. Make somebody else do it.
That is smart. Yeah, that's the last big story in the book, and then there are two more, and then
Yes.
the next one's called The Dreamers.
I don't recall what this one is.
This is a scientist and a guy are messing where they shouldn't be a messing. Don't know why I said it like that. They're getting people to drink something, and then they sort of hypnotizing them.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah.
The guy that's very good at typing.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to take people to a particular place when they're hypnotized or dreaming or whatever.
Yeah, picture the door, open the
Yeah,
door.
yeah,
Yeah, I liked this one a lot.
yeah. It was
And
creepy as well.
top half.
Yeah,
the-
yeah. It was this one was like really creepy as well, I thought.
I liked the main character. He was an interesting character
Hmm.
because he had learned. I say typing, but it's whatever it is.
Hmm.
Not
Hmm.
taking dictation, but I
Yeah.
guess. But he learned that helping his sister learn it.
Hmm.
And so he's very, very skilled at it. And he's working for this temp agency and answers an ad for a scientist
Hmm.
who needs someone to keep notes. And yeah, it's these dream experiments.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, of course, things happen. It's a Stephen King story, so things happen.
Yeah. I like I don't like typically in stories. I'm not a huge fan of dream sequences, unless it's something like A Nightmare on Elm Street, because that is the plot. But I don't like dream sequences that are just thrown in to like write a spooky scene that
Yeah.
doesn't really have anything to do with anything. But like I like the idea of dreaming explored like this, because we still just don't know that much about dreams in real life.
Right.
So there's lots of scope for, what they mean or what can be done or whatever. And we do have weird things in real life, like lucid dreaming, night terrors, like
Yes.
freakish things that, yeah. So yeah, I thought this one was really creepy.
Yeah. And it goes again, it goes into places, unexpected places.
Yeah, yeah,
Top
yeah.
half, definitely.
You don't have anything in the bottom half. Um, and then the last one is The Answer Man, and this is one of my favorites.
Yes, The Answer Man is great. I don't need any refresher on that one.
Yeah,
Uh, what is The Answer Man about?
it's about a guy who randomly sees the Answer Man, and he's like I don't think it's a spoiler to say he's like a being that can answer any question you ask, including things about the future. Um, and obviously the guy doesn't believe this is legit initially, but then he asks him some questions and realizes the guy is legit. And then he sees him again one day. And I thought this one opened up like a whole scope of like, how much would you want to know? Does knowing things help?
Right. And it has a very Ray Bradbury feel to me.
Mm,
Um, yeah, this guy, he's sort of at a crossroads at the beginning, trying to
hmm.
make a big decision.
Yeah.
And he's a lawyer, and he's
Mm,
basically trying to decide between joining the family firm, I believe it's the family firm,
mm,
or starting his own practice in this little town.
yeah.
And he runs into the just on the side of the road
Yeah.
booth with the Answer Man, and
Yeah.
he encounters him 3 times throughout the story. I don't think that's a spoiler to say.
Yeah.
Um, and so we basically have this man's entire life story,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's a matter of what questions you ask, what you do with the answers,
Hmm.
what certain answers might mean. Because of there's one, the second time he meets him, there's one question in particular.
Yeah.
He gets an answer and he doesn't know what it means. And there are a number of interpretations. There are points where he's like, oh, it could just be because of this. It could just be because of this. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one.
It was such a it's like a thought-provoking story, because I was also wondering then about what people make the decisions based on, because because he's at a crossroads at the beginning, like he said, and it's like, would he have taken that route if he didn't already know the answer to like how it was going to pan out?
Right.
If you know what I mean, like does the answer man telling him stuff, is
Influence.
that what actually, yeah, is that what actually steers him on his path, or is it the other way? Like, would he have done it regardless? I don't know. And yeah, I was sat there then thinking, oh, what would I ask the answer? But the answer man won't give answers to like, should I do this questions. So
Right.
yeah, I thought that was interesting as well, that there's like it's a stipulation about the kind of thing we'll answer.
And his prices keep going up.
Yeah, it's inflation for you.
Inflation.
That is. Yeah.
It's that American economy.
British economy as well. They're pricing us out of life, Eric.
Very Bradbury-esque in my opinion. Would have fit well in, I think, something like Different Seasons, or one of those other collections. But yeah, really, really, really good. Really, again, just great characters, and with a little, it's not over the top supernatural. It's just that sprinkle of magic.
It like straddles the border, because it's like very much set in the real world, but with this little mystical element. But also, like, if he'd been talking to the answer man and a guy on a unicycle had gone past going, something wicked this way comes, you wouldn't be surprised. Like, it would, like, you could, like, yeah, if again, this is another one, like, if he expanded it, you could put it in either, you could go full like weird fantasy with it, or keep it like kind of feeling as it is. It was really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, really, again, top half.
Yeah.
Top quarter.
Yeah. Well,
top quarter.
So the general feeling about this book is everything's in the top half of the stories then?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best books he's put out in years, and I've liked a lot of his, like, there's a couple of books I haven't liked as much, but I've liked most of the stuff he's released. So it's like, yeah, I don't mean like, oh, everything's been rubbish, but this is a good book. It's just, I think that this is elevated. Like, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And it's got like a bit of mix of everything, because he's, in more recent years, he's done a bit more with like detective characters, and you got a little bit of that in there, and then more of a, I think there's more of an equal real world versus supernatural aspect. He rooted a lot of it in real world, didn't he? And then just like had a little touch of something otherworldly in it.
Well, even Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream only has that slight touch.
Yeah.
Something otherworldly that's basically the catalyst for the rest of the story, which is real, well, till the end, real world.
Yeah.
The murder mystery, and a cop obsessed with solving this crime.
Yeah.
And the suspect. And yeah, again, it's just a sprinkling of the other world.
But yeah, but it feels like it could belong in like the universe of The Shining. Like he could just have a touch of like The Shine or something. Yeah.
He has a low midichlorian count, so he's not as strong as Danny.
Yeah, just a teeny tiny, like, yeah, a little bit.
I'm ashamed of myself for saying that.
We just let it go. It's fine.
Ignore it as we do the prequels.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, overall, I really love this book. I think, especially if you're already a Stephen King fan, it's a really good read. It wouldn't be a bad place to start if you haven't read any King, I think,
I agree.
because I don't think there's anything weak in there.
No, not at all. And I have occasionally broken the laws of mathematics by giving books 6 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with putting every story in this book in the top half of the stories in this book.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. It's really hard to rank them because, like, almost every story, like, as we got to it and I was like refreshed myself real quick, I was like, oh yeah, that was an amazing story, that might be my favorite. So yeah, really hard to put them in any sort of order.
Yeah, again, that's why I make my guests do it. I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, I would actually go as far as to say that in terms of short story collections, even though I do think I do think I like Night Shift and Skeleton Crew more still, but I could easily put my ranking order of stories for those two books, whereas this one I would really struggle, I think. So, yeah.
Decades since I've read Skeleton Crew or Night Shift, but they're iconic short story collections.
Yeah, they're both just gold, though. There's hardly anything in those either that's a bit.
I would love to see this in like a retro paperback.
Yeah.
With an 80s type of cover.
Yeah, I feel like it would suit it.
Yes, that would be fantastic. All right. Anything else before we end this that you want to talk about? Promote your own work?
Nah, leave off promoting my own work for this one, I reckon.
Well, I'll promote it for you. Everybody check out Happy Goat Horror, the website, the YouTube channel, wonderful interviews and other book ranking videos and things on there. Check out Kayleigh's books, Corpsing and The End.
Can't really get Corpsing anymore, Eric.
What? Oh,
out of print.
Go to the secondary market and find Corpsing.
That's right.
But The End.
Yeah, The End's about
available. And both great collections. So check that stuff out. I'll throw some links down in the description.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much for joining me for this.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is way more fun than doing it by myself.
I will have to do it again sometime. And folks, just jump into the comments and let us know what you think about anything and everything, sort of what we covered.
Yeah. I'd love to know what everyone else's favorites are from this collection, if we're like in alignment.
Are they all in the top half for everybody else?
They all
please like, share, and subscribe, all that usual YouTube stuff. I'm not going to go over everything that I normally go over. My regular viewers know what I have to say at the end of these. So thank you, Kayleigh. Thank you to everybody who watched. Do you want to give us your closing?
Yeah.
I love the way you close the video.
Yeah.
I spoke over it.
It's fine. It's fine. Bleed.
Bye-bye.